Zix-47 stood in front of the massive computer screen, his 3 fingers shaking slightly. The treaty archive room was huge and cold, filled with the soft blue light from countless displays. Ancient symbols and numbers floated across the screens like digital snow. He had been working at the Galactic Administrative Council for only 2 weeks, and this was his first important task. The older workers called him the new bug because of his insect-like appearance. His species, the Clixians, were known for being careful and detail-oriented. That's why they gave him this job. All he had to do was activate one simple treaty. Treaty 7.3, the Mutual Defense Pact. The Council wanted to use it against the Vorthan Empire, who had been taking over planets that didn't belong to them. ZYX-47 wiped the sweat from his forehead with a cloth. The Etherians, Korthics, and Meridians had spent 3 days arguing about which treaty to use. Finally, they agreed on Treaty 7.3. It was old, but still good. It would let them work together against the Vorthans without starting a big war. The computer interface looked like a maze of light. Treaties from thousands of years were stored here. Some were so old that nobody remembered who wrote them. Zix-47 found the search function and typed 7.3 with his shaky fingers. The screen filled with results. There were many treaties with similar numbers. Treaty 7.2, Treaty 7.3, Treaty 7.8, Treaty 3.7, Treaty 7.33, and dozens more. His eyes hurt from looking at all the glowing numbers. Which one was the right one? He remembered his supervisor saying 7.3 in the meeting. But now, looking at all these choices, he wasn't sure. Was it 7.3 or 3.7? Both numbers used the same digits, just in different order. His heart started beating faster. Zix-47 looked at his notes, but his handwriting was messy. It could say either number. He closed his eyes and tried to remember the meeting. The supervisor had been talking fast, and there was a lot of noise from the air conditioning system. The numbers all sounded similar in his mind. He decided to be careful and read the descriptions. Treaty 7.3 was called Mutual Defense Pact, Standard Response. Treaty 3.7 was called Emergency Protocols, Crisis Response. The second one sounded more serious. But maybe that was what they wanted? The Vorthan problem was getting worse every day. Time was running out. The Council was waiting for him to activate the treaty so they could start their response. If he took too long, they would think he was too slow for the job. His family needed the money from this work. He couldn't afford to lose it. Zix-47 looked at both options one more time. Treaty 7.3 seemed right, but Treaty 3.7 also made sense. The Vorthans were becoming a real emergency. Maybe the Council wanted the stronger response? He made his choice and selected Emergency Protocols 3.7. The computer screen flashed bright red for a moment, then displayed a warning message. Emergency Protocols activated. Confirm authorization level. Zix-47 felt worried, but he had already started the process. He typed in his authorization code and pressed the confirm button. Suddenly, alarms started ringing throughout the building. Not the soft warning bells they used for normal problems, but the loud, deep alarms that meant something very serious was happening. The lights in the room turned from blue to red, and the computer screen started flashing with urgent messages. Emergency Protocols 3.7 activated. The screen announced in big letters. All designated crisis response species summoned. Coordinate transmission beginning. The screen filled with coordinates and star maps. Information was being sent out to every corner of the galaxy at the speed of light. Communication networks that hadn't been used for thousands of years suddenly came to life. Zix-47 tried to cancel the command, but the computer wouldn't let him. A message appeared. Authorization level insufficient. Emergency protocols cannot be canceled once initiated. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Zix-47 heard angry voices getting closer. The door burst open, and High Counselor Vethnari rushed in with several other important officials. Their faces showed panic and confusion. "What did you do?" Vethnari demanded, looking at the flashing screens. "I activated the treaty, sir," Zix-47 said quietly. "Just like you asked." "Which treaty?" "Emergency Protocols 3.7, sir." "You said it was an emergency situation." Vethnari's face turned pale. No. We wanted Treaty 7.3, the Mutual Defense Pact. But, sir, this one seemed more appropriate for an emergency." "You don't understand," interrupted Keeper Yolthes, the old Etherean who managed the archives. "Emergency Protocols 3.7 hasn't been activated in 50,000 years. Nobody alive knows what it does." The screens around them continued flashing with status updates. Messages were being received from across the galaxy. Some civilizations were confused. Others were scared. A few were asking if this was a joke or a system error. But deep in space, in a small solar system that most galactic citizens had never heard of, something was waking up. On the third planet from a yellow star, buried beneath miles of rock and soil, an ancient device felt the signal. It had been sleeping for thousands of years, waiting for this exact message. The device was older than human civilization. It was older than human agriculture. It was older than human writing. But it knew exactly what to do when it received the emergency signal. On the surface above, humans continued their daily lives. They went to work, took care of their families, and worried about normal human problems. They had no idea that beneath their feet, something was starting to wake up. They didn't know that their planet had a secret. Designation in galactic records. They didn't know that. They were classified as emergency use. Only, the ancient device sent a reply signal back to the galactic network. It was a simple message, but it made computer systems across the galaxy pause in confusion. The message said, "Signal received. Preparation phase beginning. Estimated preparation time, 72 hours. Species, humans. Classification, Emergency Response Unit. Status, activating." In the treaty archive room, Zix-47 watched the chaos around him and realized he had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. But he also didn't realize that this mistake might be exactly what the galaxy needed. High Counselor Vethnari had not slept in 3 days. The emergency meeting room was filled with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Etherians floated in their energy pods. Carthax stood at attention in their battle armor. And Meridians interfaced directly with the computer systems, through cables plugged into their heads. Everyone was trying to understand what Emergency Protocols 3.7 actually meant. The problem was that nobody currently alive had been around when it was created. The treaty was older than most civilizations. "The automated systems are responding like this is a real emergency," reported Chief Technology Officer Quindart, a Meridian whose metal skin reflected the blue light from her computer interface. "Every defense network in the galaxy has been activated. Military bases are powering up. Supply chains are being redirected. Can't we just tell the computers it was a mistake?" asked General Thakmore, a large Korthak warrior whose species was known for solving problems with direct action. "We tried," Quindart replied. "The system says our authorization level is too low. Emergency protocols can only be cancelled by someone with Ancient Authority clearance." "What is Ancient Authority clearance?" Vethnari asked. "We don't know. That classification level doesn't exist in our current system." Keeper Yolthes, the elderly alchemist, had been quiet during most of the discussion. She was one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, and she remembered stories that others had forgotten. Now she spoke slowly, her voice filled with concern. I need to check the restricted archives, she said. There are files from before the current galactic government. Files that are sealed unless there's an actual emergency. How restricted? Vethnari asked. I haven't looked at them in over 20,000 years. I wasn't sure they were real. Yulfes left the meeting and went deep into the archive building, down to levels that required special permission to enter. She passed through security doors that scanned her DNA, her thoughts, and her intentions. Finally, she reached a room that had been sealed. For so long, the dust covered everything. The computer in this room was different from the modern systems. It was older, built by the previous galactic civilization. When Yulfes activated it, the screen showed symbols that most current beings couldn't read. She searched for Emergency Protocols 3.7 and found a file that made her blood freeze. The classification level was marked in ancient text that translated to something like USE, only if galaxy is ending. The file was about a planet called Earth, located in a small solar system that the current galactic government barely paid attention to. But according to these ancient records, Earth was not a normal planet with a normal species. YOL-DSS. Read the file with growing horror and amazement. Species classification. Emergency use only. Planet, Earth. Species, humans. Warning. Activation authorized only during existential crisis events. Termination protocol capability. Absolute. Last deployment. Sector 7 extinction event. 47,000 years ago. The file continued with details that made no sense. Enemy force completely eliminated. Collateral damage. 1 star system, 3 inhabited worlds, 2 million cubic parsecs of space, declared uninhabitable for 12,000 years. Recommendation. Use only when total galactic annihilation is imminent. But the technical specifications were even stranger. Humans were described as having persistence hunting neurology, which meant they never stopped chasing their targets. They had pack bond amplification under stress, meaning they became stronger when working together during dangerous times. Most concerning was something called exponential technological acceleration under threat. According to the file, when humans were threatened, they developed new technology at impossible speeds. They could advance thousands of years in just months. They treated impossible as challenging and certain death as interesting puzzle. Yulfes found video records from the last time humans were awakened. The images were hard to watch. An enemy species had been consuming entire solar systems, eating planets and stars like food. Nothing could stop them. Every weapon the galaxy had was useless. Then the humans arrived in ships that looked like they were built by someone who didn't understand the rules of physics. The ships moved in impossible ways and used weapons that seemed to break the laws of reality. The planet-eating enemies were not just defeated. They were completely removed from existence, as if they had never been born. But the cost was enormous. The humans didn't just destroy the enemy. They destroyed everything related to the enemy. The star systems where the battle happened were left as empty space. Even the light from those stars stopped existing. After the victory, the humans voluntarily went back to sleep. They destroyed their own advanced technology and returned to being primitive. The file said they did this on purpose, leaving only a hidden beacon on their planet that would wake them up. If the galaxy was in danger again, Yulfes found one more note at the end of the file. It was written in a language that was older than recorded history, but the computer translated it. The humans sleep because they are too dangerous to stay awake. They solve every problem, but their solutions are absolute. Wake them only if the alternative is the end of everything. Back in the meeting room, emergency reports were coming in from across the galaxy. The Vorthan Empire had interpreted the emergency broadcast as a sign of weakness. Instead of slowing down their expansion, They were attacking faster and more aggressively. 17 colonies destroyed in the last day, reported General Takmor. They're using biological weapons that make planets uninhabitable. If they keep this up, we're looking at a real extinction event. That's when Yolthes returned with the ancient file. She showed the council what she had discovered, and the room fell silent. So let me understand this, Bethnari said slowly. We accidentally woke up a species that was designed to solve impossible problems. And the Vorthans have decided to turn this into exactly the kind of crisis that these humans were created to handle. It appears so, Yolthes confirmed. On Earth, strange things were beginning to happen. Dr. Sarah Chun, a physics professor at MIT, woke up from a dream about faster-than-light travel and found equations written on her whiteboard in her own handwriting. She had no memory of writing them, but somehow she understood that they were correct. Marcus Thompson, a logistics coordinator for a shipping company, started designing supply chains for military operations he had never heard of. The designs were incredibly complex, but they felt natural to him. Like he was remembering something he had always known. Military leaders around the world found themselves developing battle plans for three-dimensional space combat. They drew diagrams of weapons that didn't exist yet, but they somehow knew exactly how to build them. The beacon beneath the Earth pulsed stronger each day. Every pulse sent information directly into human minds. Most people thought they were just having strange dreams. But a few began to realize that the dreams were actually instructions. In 69 hours, something was going to happen. Something that would change everything. The galaxy held its breath and waited. The Vorthan Emperor Kaz Ulthar stood before a massive holographic display showing the galaxy. Red markers indicated conquered worlds, and there were many more red dots than there had been a week ago. The emergency broadcast from the galactic government had convinced him that his enemies were desperate and weak. Increase the pace of expansion, he commanded his generals. They cry for help because they cannot stop us. Show them what true power means. The Vorthan Empire was unlike other galactic civilizations. Where most species preferred trade and diplomacy, the Vorthans believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. Their ships were built for war, their society was organized for conquest, and their biology was enhanced for combat. Within days of the emergency broadcast, Vorthan fleets struck at 17 star systems simultaneously. They didn't just attack military targets, they attacked everything. Civilian colonies, trading stations, even medical facilities were destroyed without mercy. On the planet Meridia Prime, home to 12 billion Meridians, bioweapons fell from the sky like rain. The weapons were designed to change the atmosphere itself, making it impossible for Meridians to breathe. Within hours, one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations was gasping for air on their own homeworld. The Etherian colonies in the Andromeda sector tried to negotiate. The Etherians had always solved problems through talking and compromise. They sent ambassadors offering to share technology and resources. The Vorthans responded by capturing the ambassadors and broadcasting their execution across the galaxy as a warning dot in the Korthic military stronghold of Warrior's Rest. General Thakmor watched his finest battle fleets get systematically destroyed. The Korthics were the galaxy's greatest warriors, but even they couldn't match the sheer brutality of the Vorthan attack. Their honor-based combat style was no match for an enemy that used poison gas and targeted civilians. "Sir," reported Captain Yak Thursday, his voice shaking, "they're not just conquering planets. They're sterilizing them. Nothing will ever grow there again." Back on Earth, the changes were accelerating far beyond strange dreams. Dr. Sarah Chun found herself understanding principles of physics that shouldn't exist. When she tried to research them, she discovered that several other scientists around the world were having similar experiences. She called Dr. Raj Patel in Mumbai, a quantum physicist she had met at a conference. "Raj, are you having dreams about folding space?" "Every night for a week," he confirmed. "And I'm building something in my garage. I don't know what it is, but I know exactly how to build it." "Same here. I think we should meet. Already booked a flight. I'll be there tomorrow." Marcus Thompson wasn't dreaming about logistics anymore. He was living it. His shipping company's computers had somehow connected to military networks around the world. Supply chains that should have taken months to organize were being completed in hours. Materials were being moved to locations that made no sense for his business, but felt absolutely necessary. When his boss asked him why he was shipping rare metals to a desert in Nevada, Marcus realized he didn't know the answer. But he also knew that stopping would be wrong, like interrupting something vital. Military leaders worldwide were experiencing the most dramatic changes. Colonel Rebecca Santos of the U.S. Navy had been a logistics officer specializing in supply chain management. Now she found herself designing space combat tactics and drawing blueprints for weapons that operated on principles she shouldn't understand. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Williams. Her confused aide, "Admiral Henderson wants to know why you requisition materials for building a spacecraft." "We're the Navy, not NASA." "Because we're going to need it," Santos replied, not sure where the certainty came from. "In about 60 hours, we're going to receive orders that will change everything." She was right. Exactly 60 hours after Zix-47's mistake. Every military command center on Earth received the same message simultaneously. It appeared on screens that weren't even turned on. It bypassed every security system without triggering any alarms. The message was simple but comprehensive. Species classification. Emergency deployment. Authorization. Ancient Compact 3.7. Preparation time complete. Deployment instructions follow. Target. Vorthan Empire. Objective. Total neutralization of threat to galactic civilization. Estimated mission duration. Variable. Rules of engagement. Absolute. The message continued with detailed intelligence about galactic civilization, the current war situation, and technical specifications for building the equipment they would need. It included star maps, enemy fleet compositions, and strategic analysis that was more detailed than anything Earth's governments had ever seen. President Martinez of the United States found herself on a video call with leaders from every major nation on Earth. They were all receiving the same information at the same time. "Is everyone else reading this?" she asked. "Unfortunately, yes," replied Prime Minister Chen of China. "According to this, we're apparently the galaxy's emergency response team." "The question is," said President Okafor of Nigeria, "do we believe it?" That question was answered when the technical specifications started proving themselves accurate. The equations Dr. Chun had been dreaming about allowed her team to build a working faster-than-light communicator in 18 hours. Marcus Thompson's supply networks delivered exotic materials that shouldn't exist on Earth, but were exactly what the specifications required. Military engineers found that the weapon designs they had been sketching actually worked. Not only did they work, but they were devastatingly effective. A prototype energy weapon built in a garage in Detroit could cut through materials that Earth science said should be indestructible. The most shocking moment came when Admiral Santos tested the first spacecraft prototype. It was built from plans that had appeared in her dreams, using materials that Marcus Thompson's logistics network had delivered. The ship shouldn't have been able to fly. But it didn't just fly. It could manipulate gravity, create its own energy, and move faster than any human technology should allow. "This is impossible," said the chief engineer, watching the test flight. "No," Santos corrected him, feeling knowledge that wasn't hers flowing through her mind. "This is just the beginning. Around the world, similar scenes were playing out. Factories that had been making cars were retooling to build spacecraft. Military bases were becoming launch facilities. Research centers were developing technologies that advanced human science by hundreds of years in just days. The people involved didn't fully understand what they were doing, but they knew it was necessary. The knowledge came from somewhere deep inside their minds, like remembering something they had always known but forgotten. On the fourth day, Earth's first battle fleet was ready for launch. It consisted of 847 ships of various sizes, crewed by humans who had been teachers, mechanics, students, and office workers just a week before. Now, they were the crew of the most advanced military force in the galaxy. As the fleet prepared for departure, a final message was broadcast to every human on Earth. Emergency protocol deployment beginning. Earth forces launching for operational zone. Estimated arrival time, 7 days. Mission status, confirmed. Threat assessment, total galactic extinction imminent. Response authorization, absolute. The last part of the message was different. It felt more human, as if it was coming from the departing fleet rather than the ancient beacon. We'll take care of this. We always do. Admiral Santos, now commanding the flagship of a fleet she didn't remember building, sent one final transmission to Earth as they departed. This is Admiral Santos of the Terra Emergency Response Fleet. We are en route to prevent galactic extinction. Estimated return time unknown. Tell our families we'll solve this problem and come home. The fleet disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth behind. On the planet's surface, the beacon finally went quiet. Its job was done. The emergency response team was activated and deployed. Now came the part that the galaxy had been dreading for 50,000 years. Finding out what humans do to species that threaten the continued existence of life itself. The first indication that something had changed in the war came from a Vorthan scout ship, patrolling the edge of their newest conquest. Sensor operator Veshkaler was monitoring empty space when her instruments detected something impossible. "Sir," she reported to Commander Thilvolgic, "I'm reading 847 objects approaching our position, but they don't match any known ship design in our database." "Show me," the commander ordered, the main display filled with images of ships that looked wrong. They were asymmetrical, built like they were designed by someone who didn't care about traditional engineering principles. Some were large and angular, others were small and curved. None of them followed standard galactic design rules. What species builds ships like that? Veshkaler wondered. "Unknown," replied the commander. "Send a warning transmission. Tell them to identify themselves or be destroyed." The response came immediately, transmitted on all frequencies in perfect Vorthan language. "This is Admiral Rebecca Santos of the Terra Emergency Response Fleet. You are conducting unauthorized warfare against civilian populations. Cease all hostile operations immediately and withdraw to your original territorial boundaries. You have 30 seconds to comply." Commander Thilvolgic had never heard of humans or Terra, but the tone of the message offended him. How dare an unknown species make demands of the mighty Vorthan Empire? "Unknown vessel," he transmitted back. "You are addressing the Vorthan Empire, conquerors of 17 star systems. You are clearly primitive and outnumbered. Withdraw immediately or be annihilated." The reply came with what sounded like amusement in the alien voice. "Incorrect. You are outnumbered 1-to-1, and that is sufficient. Engaging now." What happened next was recorded by every sensor in the Vorthan fleet and would later be studied by military academies across the galaxy. It wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration of technology and tactics that redefined what was possible in space combat. The human ships moved in ways that violated the known laws of physics. They accelerated without showing any energy signatures. They turned at angles that should have destroyed them. They fired weapons that seemed to operate on principles that no galactic civilization understood. Commander Thulvorgak's ship, a heavy destroyer designed to destroy entire space stations, found itself surrounded by 3 small human vessels. They weren't trying to destroy his ship. They were carefully dismantling it. His weapon systems went offline, then his shields, then his engines. Within minutes, his ship was powerless but undamaged. How are they doing this? Veshkeller asked, watching her instruments show impossible readings. I don't know, the commander replied. But he was beginning to feel something Vorthons rarely experienced: fear. Across the Vorthon fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Massive dreadnoughts that had destroyed planets were being systematically shut down by human ships a fraction of their size. The humans didn't seem interested in destroying the Vorthon vessels. They were neutralizing them with surgical precision. The engagement lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the entire Vorthon patrol fleet was intact but powerless. Not a single Vorthon had been killed, but their ability to wage war had been completely eliminated. Admiral Santos opened a communication channel to the Vorthon flagship. Commander Thulvorgak, your fleet has been neutralized. Your crews are unharmed. You will retreat to your original borders immediately. Any further aggression against civilian populations will result in escalated response. What are you? Thulvorgak demanded. We're humans, and we're here to solve a problem. News of the engagement spread rapidly through Vorthon communication networks. Emperor Kaz-Ulthar received the reports with disbelief and rage. Some unknown species had humiliated his forces without even trying to destroy them. This was unacceptable. Send the primary battle fleet, he ordered his generals. 10,000 ships. Obliterate these humans and show the galaxy what happens to those who oppose us. But sir, ventured General Yog-Thular, if they could disable an entire patrol fleet in 17 minutes, they caught us by surprise, the Emperor snapped. Our main fleet will be ready for them. The primary Vorthon battle fleet was the largest military force ever assembled. 10,000 ships ranging from fast fighters to massive planet killers. It had conquered entire sectors of the galaxy. Against 847 human ships, it should have been certain victory. The 2 fleets met in the Kepler system, a strategically important location that controlled several major trade routes. The Vorthon formation was traditional and overwhelming, a massive wall of firepower designed to destroy everything in its path. The human formation looked chaotic by comparison. Their ships were scattered across a huge area, not following any recognizable tactical pattern. To Vorthon observers, it looked like the humans had no idea what they were doing. Overlord Kaz-Thul, commanding the Vorthon flagship, opened communications. Human fleet, you are outnumbered 10,000 to 1. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Admiral Santos' reply was broadcast to both fleets and recorded by news services across the galaxy. Overlord Kaz-Thul, you have committed war crimes against civilian populations. You have used biological weapons against inhabited worlds. You have refused multiple opportunities to withdraw peacefully. This ends now. You cannot stop the Vorthon Empire with 847 ships against my 10,000. Kaz-Thul roared, "Watch us!" The battle that followed became known as the 17-minute war, even though it lasted exactly the same amount of time as the first engagement. Galactic military historians would spend centuries trying to understand what they witnessed. Thought the human ships didn't attack the Vorthon fleet. They danced around it. They moved through the massive formation like they were performing some kind of complex ballet, dodging weapons fire that should have been impossible to avoid. Their own weapons were surgical in their precision, targeting specific systems without destroying entire ships. One by one, Vorthen vessels went dark. Not destroyed, not damaged beyond repair, but simply shut down. Their power cores stopped working. Their weapon systems forgot how to fire. Their communication arrays went silent. The humans were systematically turning off the Vorthen fleet like someone flipping light switches. Overlord Castle watched his mighty armada become a collection of powerless hulks floating in space. His own flagship was one of the last to be neutralized. As his bridge systems went offline one by one, he heard Admiral Santa's voice one final time. Overlord Castle, your fleet has been neutralized. Your crews are alive and unharmed. You will order all Vorthen forces to withdraw to your original territorial boundaries immediately. You will provide aid and compensation to the worlds you have damaged. You will never again use biological weapons against civilian populations. And if we refuse? Castle asked, though he already knew he had no choice. Then you will discover why we're classified as emergency use only. What you've seen so far is us being polite. The threat hung in the air like a physical presence. Castle had conquered hundreds of worlds, but he had never felt fear like this. These humans had destroyed his entire fleet without killing anyone, using technology that seemed impossible. If this was them being polite, what would happen if they decided to be serious? We withdraw, he said quietly. Excellent. You have 72 hours to begin retreat from all conquered territories. We'll be monitoring your compliance. As the human fleet departed, leaving the powerless Vorthen vessels floating in space, emergency rescue ships from various galactic civilizations arrived to provide assistance. The Vorthens were rescued. Their ships were towed to repair facilities. And slowly the galaxy began to understand what had just happened. The greatest military threat in galactic history had been neutralized by 847 ships from an unknown world. The humans had solved an impossible problem in exactly the way their ancient classification suggested they would. Completely, efficiently, and with a restraint that was almost more terrifying than if they had simply destroyed everything across the galaxy. Civilizations that had been preparing for extinction began to breathe again. The emergency was over. The humans had solved the problem, but now everyone wanted to know, what exactly were these humans, and why had the galaxy's ancestors been so afraid of waking them up? In the aftermath of what historians would call the 17-minute war, the galaxy found itself in a state of peace. The Vorthen Empire, true to their forced promise, had begun withdrawing from conquered territories. Their military forces were busy helping repair the damage they had caused instead of causing more destruction. But peace wasn't the only thing the galaxy had gained. They had also gained questions. Lots of them. High Counselor Vethnari stood in the emergency council chamber, looking at reports from across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Who were the humans and where had they come from? The human fleet has taken up position in the Outer Rim, reported Chief Technology Officer Quindart. They're not attacking anyone, but they're also not leaving. Our long-range sensors can barely detect them. Their technology is unlike anything in our databases. Have we tried communicating with them? Asked General Thakmore. Yes, but they only respond to official questions about the Vorthen withdrawal. When we ask about themselves, they say the information is classified at a level we don't have access to. Keeper Yolthes had spent the past week diving deeper into the ancient archives. The restricted files about Emergency Protocol 3.7 had led her to even older records. Files that were so ancient they predated the current galactic calendar. I found something, she announced to the council. Information about who created the emergency, protocols, and why. The room fell silent as Yolthes activated a holographic display showing star charts that were 50,000 years old. The current galactic civilization isn't the first, she began. Before us, there was another group of species who controlled the galaxy. They called themselves the Gardeners, and according to these records, they were far more advanced than we are today. The display showed images of beings that looked nothing like any current galactic species. They seemed to be made of energy as much as matter, and their technology appeared to work by manipulating reality itself. 50,000 years ago, the galaxy faced an extinction-level threat. Entities from outside our reality were consuming entire star systems, not conquering them, eating them. These beings could devour the energy of stars and planets. Growing stronger with each meal, images appeared showing the enemy, dark shapes that seemed to absorb light itself. Surrounded by the empty space where solar systems used to be, the Gardeners tried everything. Their most powerful weapons were useless. Their most advanced ships were consumed like everything else. The enemy was spreading across the galaxy, and nothing could stop them. General Thakmor shifted uncomfortably. So what did they do? They created a weapon, Yulfes replied. But not a traditional weapon. They found a promising young species on a small planet and began modifying them. Not with technology, but by changing their fundamental nature. The display showed Earth as it was 50,000 years ago, a world covered in ice, populated by primitive humans struggling to survive. The Gardeners didn't make humans stronger or smarter in the traditional sense. Instead, they wove something into human DNA that was far more dangerous. The complete inability to accept defeat. The room was so quiet that the soft hum of the air. Recycling systems seemed loud. They created a species that would never stop trying to solve problems. A species whose technology would advance exponentially when under pressure. A species that treats impossible as challenging and views certain death as interesting puzzle to solve. But why make them so extreme? Asked Vethnari. Because the enemy was extreme, Yulfes replied. The Gardeners needed something that could eliminate a threat so completely that it would never return. They needed a species that didn't just solve problems, they solved them permanently. The display showed the final battle from 50,000 years ago. Human ships that looked like controlled chaos, weapons that operated on principles that bend reality, and enemies that simply stopped existing. The humans didn't just defeat the star-eating entities. They removed them from reality so completely that it was as if they had never existed. The empty space where solar systems had been consumed was restored. The threat was not just ended, it was undone. And then, General Thakmor asked. Then the humans voluntarily went back to sleep. They destroyed their own advanced technology and returned to being primitive. The Gardeners left them a beacon and a simple instruction. Wake us only if the galaxy truly faces extinction. We will solve the problem. We always solve the problem. But understand the cost. When we solve problems, we solve them permanently. The implications of this revelation settled over the council like a heavy blanket. The humans hadn't been created to be conquerors or overlords. They had been created to be guardians, but guardians whose methods were so absolute that they could only be used when the alternative was the end of everything. So they're not naturally this advanced? Quindard asked. No. According to the records, when they're awake and active, they advance technologically at an impossible rate. But when the crisis is over, they voluntarily return to a primitive state. They sacrifice their own advancement to protect the galaxy from their own capabilities. At that moment, a communication signal came through the Council's main screen. It was Admiral Santos, calling from the human fleet in the Outer Rim. Hi, Counselor Vethnari, she said. We understand you've been researching our origins. We're calling to inform you that our mission is complete. The Vorthan threat has been neutralized. Their withdrawal is proceeding on schedule. And galactic civilization is no longer in danger of extinction. Admiral Santos, Vethnari replied. We've learned about your people's history. We understand what you are and why you were created. We want you to know that the galaxy is grateful for your intervention." Santa smiled, but there was something sad in her expression. "We appreciate that, Counselor. But our time here is ending. Emergency Protocol 3.7 is now concluding. Earth forces will stand down and return to monitoring status." "You're leaving?" "We're returning to dormancy. It's what we do. We wake up when the galaxy faces extinction. We solve the problem, and then we go back to sleep. It's safer for everyone that way." "But the galaxy could benefit from your technology, your knowledge." "No," Santos interrupted gently. "We've learned that lesson before. Our technology is too dangerous to exist permanently. When humans are awake and active, we don't just solve the immediate problem. We solve every problem we encounter. We improve everything we touch, but our improvements are so absolute that they eliminate choice and diversity." She paused, looking at something off camera. "In our previous awakening, after we eliminated the star-eating entities, we started improving other species. We made them more efficient, more logical, more perfect. We nearly turned the entire galaxy into a single, homogeneous civilization. The gardeners had to stop us and convince us to return to dormancy voluntarily." The council members exchanged worried glances. The humans weren't just powerful. They were so powerful that their help could be as dangerous as any threat they were designed to fight. "So you're going back to Earth?" Vethnare asked. "Yes, our ships will be deactivated. Our technology will be sealed away. Our people will return to their normal lives, and over time, the knowledge of this awakening will fade from human memory. Only the beacon will remain, waiting for the next crisis." "How long until you forget?" "A few generations. Our children will grow up thinking this was all just a strange dream their parents had. By the time their children are adults, humanity will be back to being a primitive species on a small planet, unaware of the galaxy around them." Dr. Sarah Chun's voice came through the communication system. She was back in her laboratory on Earth, looking at equations that no longer made sense to her. "It's already starting," she said. "The advanced knowledge is fading from our minds. It's like waking up from a very vivid dream and trying to remember the details. I can feel it slipping away." Marcus Thompson appeared on the screen next. "My supply networks have been shut down. All the exotic materials have been returned or destroyed. In a few days, I'll go back to shipping normal cargo and wondering why I have strange dreams about space logistics." Admiral Santos looked directly at the camera. "Counselor, we want you to understand something important. We don't consider this a sacrifice. This is who we are. We're not meant to rule the galaxy or guide its development. We're meant to be the emergency backup system, the last resort when everything else fails. Will we see you again? Only if the galaxy faces another extinction-level threat. And frankly, we hope that day never comes." The transmission ended, and the council chamber fell silent again. Over the following days, they watched as the human fleet simply vanished. Their ships didn't explode or fly away. They just stopped existing, as if they had been turned off like lights. On Earth, humans returned to their normal lives with only vague memories of strange dreams. Scientists found notebooks filled with equations they couldn't understand. Military leaders discovered battle plans for weapons that didn't exist. Everyone agreed that it had been a very unusual few weeks, but nobody could quite remember why. The beacon beneath the Earth went silent and would remain silent until the galaxy needed humanity again. Zix 47. The intern, whose mistake had started everything, found himself promoted to senior archive specialist.